Hi, everyone. Welcome to season 2 of Fueling Tomorrow, presented by Diamondback. I'm your host, Erin Bailey, and today we are joined by Midland Mayor Lori Blong. Lori, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here with you.
We are so excited to kick off season 2 with you, and we're going to get started by talking about 2024 for the city of Midland. There were so many amazing things that happened, from infrastructure improvements.
Mhm.
We found out Costco's coming to Midland. We have a few sports complexes in the works and Midland's Merry Lights, along with some new hotels downtown. So those are just a few examples.
Yeah,
But from out of those, what are you most proud of?
I am super excited about everything you just mentioned. You kind of gave a good rundown of the things that were accomplished, the big highlights. I think some of the smaller wins were just some of the processes that we refined at the city. We were able to take a permitting process, which was taking multiple months at the beginning of last year, and we're down to a matter of days to be able to get a
Wow.
permit through City Hall. And that is a huge win and really a benefit to developers and overall to all Midlanders. So there's some of those types of changes that have been just the small things that really matter a lot for the quality of life in Midland.
Mhm.
These big projects, of course, everybody's excited about Costco and the hotels and all of those things. And we're still full steam ahead,
Yes.
a lot of those kind of opportunities. But I really view part of the primary role of local government is to take care of the small things, to make sure
Mhm.
that our water is as we need it to be and we have water into the future. And so we've made strides in that in 2024. Our infrastructure and our just road improvements are moving along, some slower than we would like, but
Yes.
definitely moving along. And then the firefighter retirement
Mhm.
fund was a talking point really for the last 2 years, and we came to an agreement on what the solution would be actually in 2024. But just last week, in early February of 2025, we were able to get that across the finish line, and the city of Midland and the firefighters came together with a joint solution, and we paid off the unfunded liability to get it to a 30-year amortization. That's not a sexy thing, and
Yeah.
a lot of
Yeah.
Midlanders don't, they're not fired up about that in the same way that they are about Costco, but it's
Mhm.
one of the biggest impacts to our financial health as a city. And so to be able to have that accomplished and behind us is a huge win, and it's something that kept me up at night.
I was gonna say, do you
Yeah.
feel like you can finally take a deep breath, at least for now?
I do. And so I think that that part of this has been really impactful, and the opportunity to move forward in confidence that we have a safe and secure city and we're providing well for firefighters and their families into the future. But we're also going to be able to have a fire department that can support our community. And we need both of those things for
Mhm.
sure.
And that it was a problem for so many years, and it really just happened to fall on your shoulders as
It did.
mayor, but it's such an exciting thing that you guys got it figured out.
Yeah, and it was a problem that was brewing over the last 20 plus years in the city of Midland. Previous mayors had tried to address it in various ways, but essentially, there was not a solution up until a couple weeks ago. So, very exciting.
Yeah. And all of those things are really working towards making Midland a better place. And
Yes.
with that, the median age in Midland is in the early 30s.
Mhm.
So when you think of projects like the Diamondback Energy Athletic Complex, we have the Beal Park soccer fields, and then we have the Reyes Mashburn Nelms ball fields. What do projects like that do for setting us apart from surrounding communities?
If we look at just what brings people to Midland,
Hmm.
obviously oil and gas will always be, it has always been and will always be one of the most significant attractors of people to our community. But sports tourism is close second, actually.
Yes.
And there's a lot of people that are coming to our community to play sports. And then there's also a lot of people who leave our community to play
Hmm.
sports elsewhere because we don't have the facilities we need. So when we look at adding these facilities that you mentioned, whether that's a municipal project that we're paying for through municipal dollars, or their private investments, or a combination thereof, we're really resourcing the community to be able to bring folks in, have these great tournaments that are attracting people from around our area. They spend their dollars in our hotels and in our restaurants and our stores. And so these are not fluffy little extras. These are things that are core to the economy of Midland, and they really make a meaningful change, a meaningful benefit to our economic structure and stability as a community.
And when you think of people coming into Midland once these projects are at the fruition, what is it that excites you most about what people are going to experience about being here and seeing Midland, not just driving through, but actually spending some time here.
Yeah, I have 3 kids that have come through sports, at various different levels in our community, and we've had to travel to other communities to play some of these major tournaments, and my kids have consistently said, "Why can't Midland have something this
Yeah.
nice?" And so I think we're beginning to see some of those changes take place where we will have the Diamondback Energy athletic facility, and all of the options that are there for indoor sports, and then the Beal Park, 62 new soccer fields.
That's
That is
insane.
significant, and it's going to be a game changer for the soccer landscape. That's the largest rec sport in for youth in our
Mhm.
community, and so we need to be able to make an investment that will allow those people to continue to enjoy, kids to continue to develop their skills and invite people into Midland.
And having sports complexes in Midland was one of the things that really kickstarted the Midland Athletic Syndicate.
Mhm.
And so we're going to touch on the Diamondback Energy Athletic Complex a
Yes.
bit because, one, obviously, we're so excited about it. But when you think of projects like that, it's important to note that that one is fully funded by
Mhm.
the community. There are zero taxpayer dollars
Right.
involved. And with projects like that, how important is it to have those public private partnerships
Mhm.
to really improve the quality of life in Midland?
Yeah, so the tax basis in Midland is significant just with oil and gas reserves and with property taxes and those sorts of things. But if you look at our total property tax collection annually, it doesn't even cover all of our police and fire department.
Mhm.
Just those two basic services, not to mention parks and roads and water, all of
Yes.
those other things. So our we cannot base our ability to develop these facilities just based on our property tax. That burden is too heavy a lift
Mhm.
for property taxpayers in the city of Midland. And so the opportunity to have public private partnerships allows us to do more with our facilities and with our resources here in Midland. And we're really thankful to have partners like Diamondback who are willing to come alongside and make investments in these things that are important for our community. That particular project is on city owned
Yeah,
grounds. So
it
there's
wouldn't
a
have been possible without the
yes.
lease from you
So
guys.
there's a long-term ground lease, where basically for free, I think it's, a dollar a
Yeah.
year or
Yes.
$10 a year
Yeah,
or
we'll
something like
make
that.
it.
Yeah, and so it's a long-term ground lease, and then all of the construction of the capital investment in the construction of that facility, and then the long-term management of that facility is taking place privately. And so those are local men and women who have agreed to commit their dollars to a project that they believe in for the benefit of their children and future generations. I'm really proud to have gone to high school with a lot of the guys that
Yeah.
were the originators behind the project, and they've each put money into this.
Mhm.
They've done the fundraise themselves, raised that money in a remarkably short period of time. And Diamondback was a huge part of that, but there were other contributors as well to the project. And to me, that is a picture of Midlanders who have made their wealth in Midland, who are willing to invest it back into our community.
Are there any other public private partnerships that stick out to you?
Well, the Beal Park is another public private partnership. We've also had philanthropic dollars that have come into that project so far. The Beal Foundation, the Scarborough Foundation, and ExxonMobil have made investments into that project, and there's going to be additional investments. Some of those actually have come across my desk this week. They're not ready to be made public, but we're really excited about a couple of other groups that are joining us in giving money to that. The way that we formatted that project, the city is investing 28 million into the basics of those 62 fields. And then we're inviting philanthropy to join us in other additional investments and amenities that we can provide in that park. And so the way I view it is the city is going to take care of the basics. That's ours to do. And then the things that are going to make that really next level
Mhm.
and provide additional amenities, those are coming from philanthropy. And I think that's a good model for us as a community, for the city to cover the basics. And then as we want nicer things
Yes.
and more fabulous opportunities, then we can do that through private dollars that come into the project.
And taking those projects to the next level is what really is gonna bring people to Midland.
That's right.
So the more tournaments we can have here, the better.
Yeah, and we need a matrix of solutions for that. So some of it will happen inside that park, potentially with a splash pad into the future, and other concession stands, and other just different things to make that park a real destination experience. But we're also going to need places for those families to stay. And the Beal Park, where it's located in in Southwest Midland, and then all of the Scarborough Sports Complex development, the
Mhm.
Diamondback Energy Athletic Facility, the future zoo and
Yes.
Costco, all of that whole corridor. There's so much opportunity for families to come and enjoy a weekend in Midland. We have to continue to invest to be able to make some of those things a reality. And I think there's other opportunities that are coming that are just going to be private developers who come in and have a vision for West Midland. So, Midland, the city of Midland is doing our part, and we are so thankful to have others that are as well.
And since your time as councilwoman and mayor, have you seen a shift in either companies or individuals really starting to put resources into Midland and contributing to make Midland an even better place to live?
Yeah, I think part of this goes back to what you said earlier, that the median age is in early 30s. Midland families are really leading the way in a lot of these conversations. And so, just in the time since I was first elected
Mhm.
in 2019, sworn in 2020, in those
What a
5
year.
short years, yeah, we've learned some things the hard way.
Yes.
In the last 5 years. But one of the things that I think is the most impactful in those 5 years is the mobilization of these young families, people who are still very much in the throes of raising children and figuring out their own career paths and all of those things, but they're active in our community and they're making it clear that they want to see family friendly amenities around our community holistically, whether that's sports, which we've talked about a lot
Mhm.
here, or that's other work opportunities, or just the ability to go out and dine with your family in a safe place to have outdoor dining opportunities. We just have so much going for us as a community, but we need to leverage the things that are really unique about Midland, and make those families want to come here and stay here.
Yes. And you're born and raised Midland. From when you were growing up to where it is now, did you ever think Midland would get to where it is?
You know, I was born and raised here, and I got here in 1982. So you guys can do the math. I'm
Yes.
42 years old. But I really do believe that Midland has evolved so much since then. And we've had some really significant commodity cycles in
Mhm.
those intervening 40 plus years. And some of the most painful times economically in Midland have taken place in those windows, but some of the highest highs have also taken place there. And so I have come to love Midland in all of its life cycles, but I would say that we are a different place today than we were when I was a kid. And when I was in high school, I remember vividly oil was trading at $8 a barrel.
Oh my gosh.
And so you just think about what that would feel like in this community. This
Mhm.
was Nobody was graduating high school in the late 90s and saying, "I think I'll come back and build my life in
Yeah.
this industry and in this community." It was a difficult place, and there were all kinds of predictions that we had already seen peak oil and that everything was, grim into the future. We didn't account for a shale oil play and all the technology that has brought us to horizontal drilling and completions and all of the advanced technologies that we have right now. So the future has become bright, but I think it's even brighter into the future because there's all kinds of technologies that are being optimized right now. And there's all kinds of local investment back into our community that just wasn't taking place in the 90s.
Mhm. It is an exciting time to be in Midland for sure. And
Mhm.
with that, let's look at 2025. What
Mhm.
are some things we can expect from the city of Midland this year?
The city of Midland went through a really important strategic planning process, and so last year was our first year of that 5-year strategic plan. So this year in 2025, we're in year two of a 5-year strategic plan, and we're dialing in our priorities to according to six different goals. And I'd love for you to be able to link those for people to be
Yeah.
able to take a look at that. We have those six goals, and then we have things that we're hanging on those, as far as strategic opportunities to enact those goals. But part of what city council and our city staff has decided is that we're going to run everything that we're asked to do past those six goals. And
Okay.
if it is not consistent with the strategic goals that we have set forward, then it's not something that we need to devote time and dollars and resources to. And so those are things like creating a safe and secure city,
Okay.
making sure that we have what we need for our police and fire, but also for our facilities and for the investments that we have, a strong fiscal and governance, making sure that we're managing our dollars, but we're also providing governance over all the responsibilities of the city and doing those things well. And I won't belabor all of those, but those are some really important criteria that we're running that through. So when we start looking at actual projects, some of it is just enacting the projects that we've planned over the last couple of years. We want to see Garfield get finished? For heaven's
Yes.
sake, could we just please finish Garfield?
And you talk about red cone, orange cone fatigue all the time, but
Yes.
on Garfield, it's especially true.
Orange cone fatigue is a real thing, and
Yeah.
we're ready to see some of that. So we're going to be completing those projects that were part of that 2017 voter approved road bond, and then we have some other projects. We have $28 million in 2025 to be able to do some improvements on our roadways, and a lot of that we're moving away from the core of Midland. If you lived here through that road bond, a lot of those were projects that were really in the main pathways of commuter
Mhm.
traffic in our community. They needed to be done. I'm glad that we did it. But now we have some places where we need to move and catch up with development and get ahead of development. And so that's going to be areas like opening Wadley up to 158. We're going to see some improvements in on Briarwood, and just making sure that we have safe roadways in some of those areas. We're partnering with the county on several projects to be able to work through infrastructure. So a lot of just basic blocking and tackling, taking care of the business of the city and caring for our primary responsibilities first, and then some of these more exciting quality of life, workforce recruiting and retention issues, we're going to be making sure that the city's providing what is needed to get those across the finish line. So the Costco, they are on pace to be open before we can even imagine that. I guess it's easier to build a warehouse than it is
I
to
hear
build some other more
yeah.
complex facility.
That is beyond exciting. I mean, I'm not from Midland, so everywhere I've lived has had a Costco, and
Yeah.
now I'm like, "Oh my gosh."
Yeah, it's gonna be great. So I
Yeah.
think really the city of Midland's role in 2025, we're gonna take care of the basics, and then we're gonna make sure that we're stewarding the other projects that are coming through really, really well.
Are there any other quality of life projects that you're particularly ready for?
The zoo and the preserve in
Mhm.
West Midland are very exciting to me. They have a lot of responsibility with the drainage of that particular property. And this is more in the weeds than probably your listeners may care about. But since the 90s, that Nueva Vista Golf Course has been the primary solution for all of the water runoff
Yes.
for that whole region of town. And the water flows from south to north there. So even from south of 191, the water flow is coming up north. And so those guys that have taken on that project are also having to solve for some of those drainage solutions, and that's a big lift for them.
Mhm.
And so thankful to see those projects coming forward. Can't wait to have the zoo, but also recognizing that that's a really important development. We have to get it right.
It's crazy to think that Midland's gonna have a zoo.
Crazy to think Midland's gonna have a zoo.
Like, "Oh, there's a giraffe."
Yeah, it's gonna be
Oh.
awesome, and I think those are the types of family-friendly amenities that Midland really is demanding of
Mhm.
us right now, and that is another example of a private investment. Those are not city dollars that are going into the zoo. They're raising those things privately. Jeff Beard and his team are working diligently to get that done and to move it forward, and so just really proud of all of these local companies and families that are investing.
And I think it's so exciting. You always hear people say, "Oh, there's nothing to do in Midland," and
Mhm,
they leave on the weekends.
mhm,
All of these projects are, I mean, we've said it multiple times now, but the quality of life is just improving drastically
mhm,
here. And pretty soon, people are gonna be like, "Oh my gosh, where are you going this weekend?" "Oh, I'm staying in. We're
mhm.
going to the zoo."
Yeah, and not only staying in, but attracting other people. I mean,
Mhm.
you think about some of the surrounding areas around Midland. We're going to have some things to attract those folks to come here and spend their weekend.
Yes.
I've said before, but Midland is very centrally located. It's 5 hours to everything,
Yes,
and
yeah.
and so we have to have some of those things that keep us here, but then draw in people from the surrounding rural areas as well.
And I think we have to touch on the hard work of the city staff.
Mhm.
All of the projects we mentioned have an element of city staff in them, and a lot of the work they do goes unnoticed.
Yeah,
They're truly the unsung heroes of everything that
they
takes
really
place here. So, as mayor and during your time as councilwoman as well, what is it really like to see that firsthand?
We've made some really strategic hires in the last 2 years since I've been mayor, and those we're seeing the fruit of those strategic hires. Tommy Gonzalez was a city manager that we hired not quite 2 years ago, and he has made some really significant changes and helped us to level up the services that Midlanders can expect from
Mhm.
our city. And I'm very proud of that. Elizabeth Triggs is another
Yeah.
person who she is she's a champion, and she's really the one that we can attribute a lot of the benefit to our permitting process. She's the one that's helped to get that cleaned up and help it to move forward carefully, and she's just great to work with. We've also had a lot of improvements to our communication, and Stuart Doreen has stepped in and is helping with our communication, and Taylor Novak kind of oversees that communication, and it's internal communication within the city, which was needed. There
Mhm.
were silos that they've been able to break through, and we have departments overlapping and working together on projects in a way that never was happening before. So there's that internal communication, but then they've also done a great job of pushing communication out from the city to the community, whether that's through social media or other media outlets, but then inviting the community to communicate back into the city, to the council, and to the city staff through surveys and through other opportunities, town halls. I feel like we have as much communication bidirectionally with the city as we've ever had in Midland, and I'm really thankful for that too.
Do you think having those open ways of communication makes it even easier to do your job because you truly know and are hearing what the citizens want?
Absolutely. And I think, it's human nature to not really communicate unless you have a problem. And nowhere is that more evident than local city government.
Yeah.
I definitely know that. But I think that this steady flow of communication that all of council, myself and the rest of the council members and then city staff as well, we're trying to get information out and then receive that back in as much as possible. I do think it makes us make better decisions. It gives us a more well-informed approach to the decisions that we're making. And there will be places where we don't get that right 100% of the time, but
Mhm.
it is definitely the objective. And I think we're making strides in the right direction.
And recently, we announced that interim you announced that interim chief Greg Snow is now the
Yeah.
official chief of the Midland Police Department. So what does that mean for our citizens?
Yeah, so our previous police chief left in roughly May of last year, and we named Greg Snow as our interim. And so we decided at that point it was really important for us to go through a national search. And so we hired a reputable search firm to help facilitate that process. But we also, Greg Snow has been with the department, I think, 25 years.
Yeah.
And so really a committed member of our community, maybe 26 years. I could have
26.
my date,
Yeah.
26 years. But very committed member of our community, deeply invested in Midland and with his own family here. This is the place where he's chosen to be on purpose. And so over the last year, he has led our department to more than a 10% reduction in violent crime. He has led a couple of different initiatives for some traffic enforcement that I think we desperately needed in our
Mhm.
community. We need more of that actually, and he's carrying out the wishes of our council and of our community to have increased enforcement, increased community presence of our officers in the city of Midland. And we're seeing, with a 10% reduction in violent crime, there's a huge correlation there between just having a feeling of presence in our community of those police officers, traffic enforcement, and enforcement in the small things. And you're hearing a theme, I hope. We're taking care of the small things, expecting that that's going to improve the quality of life overall. We're seeing that happen. But I think that is, I, as mayor, and the rest of our council believe we have a primary goal here of making sure that we provide for the basic needs of our community. And then the quality of life can thrive on top of that. But we got to
Yes.
get the basics right first.
And we want all citizens to feel safe. If you
That's
feel
right.
safe, you're going to have a more enjoyable time here.
That's right. And Greg Snow, through that national process, it really became clear that we had the right guy here. And so we were thankful for the other applicants and vetted some of them really closely all the way to the end.
Mhm.
But he was our choice, and I'm looking forward to continuing to grow our police department with him.
That's so exciting.
Yeah.
Are there any other things that you want the citizens to know, whether it's projects, whether it's personnel, City of Midland related, or are there any misconceptions or questions that you get a lot as mayor that you want to touch on?
There's a lot of things that people wonder whose responsibility is this? Is this a county issue? Is this a city issue? Can we do certain things? And I think those are really valuable questions to ask. But I would encourage Midlanders to get informed about
Mhm.
whose responsibility is it to manage certain things. There's a lot of weight that is put on the city because the mayor, everybody thinks the mayor has the answers for all the things. And I do want to resource people with the answers to their questions. And so if you don't know who to ask, you can direct those questions to me and I will help you get those things out there. One of the things that I think is a huge misconception is who manages each of the different roadways in Midland. And a lot of people think if it's inside the city limits, it must be a city project, but that's just not the case.
Mhm.
TechStop controls some of the roads, specifically Big Spring and Andrews Highway, Midland Drive. Several of the key roadways and thoroughfares are not city projects. And so when we have issues on those roadways, those are not necessarily things that the city of Midland can control. We can work with TxDOT, and we do work closely with TxDOT. We have a good relationship with them, but we don't always choose which roads are under construction or in what manner they're being handled. And so that is a regular question that comes up and a thing that we deal with. The county has custody of certain things, and so there's just a lot of players in the road construction conversation, and it's not always a decision that the city of Midland gets to make. Similarly, the city of Midland doesn't always get to control some of those contractors. Once we bring in a
Mhm.
contractor to complete a project, if they have staffing challenges or they have trouble getting certain materials, we don't have full custody of how all of that will be managed. And so we're putting things in place to help manage some of those capital improvement projects that are ours to be able to manage. But we don't always get to control the things that a lot of citizens think we can and should. And so that's a common misconception.
And I think for people who do have questions about construction, they can go to the website because you guys have a
Yes.
page that you can pull up and click on every little cone around Midland and see
Yes.
the progress of that project.
Yeah, and I think that's a great thing to bring up here. We have put so much money into our website with
Mhm.
Ask Jackie, which is our AI tool, and Ask Jackie is learning consistently. She's getting better and better at answering people's questions. We also have an app called See Click Fix, where you can raise concerns about the community, whether it's a pothole or it's a zoning change issue or whatever your issue is. See Click Fix is a really quick way to get in touch with city staff and to get response to your questions or your needs. So I think all Midlanders should download See Click Fix and then familiarize yourself with the website because we've tried so hard to get all of those questions answered proactively on the website.
And follow social media. If you don't want to get on the
Yes.
webpage, you guys are on every platform.
We are on every platform and we have a great team that's working hard to communicate out as much as possible.
Well, Mayor Blong, it is such an exciting time to be in Midland. And thank you so much for coming and answering our questions
Yeah.
today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a great opportunity for me to get to share. So thanks so much.
Of course. Everyone, on behalf of Mayor Blong and myself, I'm your host, Erin Bailey, and we'll chat next time.